My 18-year-old French guy led me on. He had that accent, the kind that made even the most ordinary words sound like poetry. I was 22, he was 18, fresh from Paris with messy curls, lazy smiles, and eyes that always looked like they were hiding something. At first, I told myself it was just a friendship, but the way he looked at me, the way he stood too close, laughed too long, and let his hand linger just a second too much, it made me question everything. I fell hard. And he never said it out loud. But the things he did? They were louder than any promise. This is not just a story about heartbreak. It's about that one person who makes you feel seen, only to vanish when it matters most. And what happened the night I finally told him the truth? It still echoes in my chest. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. We bring you stories that feel too real, too close, and sometimes too painful, but always unforgettable. I met Leo on a rainy Tuesday in October. I still remember how the air smelled like wet leaves, and the inside of the campus library was warmer than usual, heavy with the scent of paper, old coffee, and that strange mix of stress and ambition that clings to university walls. He was standing by the window, flipping through a poetry book, in French, of course. He wore an oversized sweater, faded jeans, and had earbuds in, head slightly tilted like the music transported him somewhere better. I wasn't supposed to notice him. I had come in to print a paper, maybe check my emails, and head to class. But something about him, the way he read like the world around him didn't exist, made me stop. And then, without warning, he looked up. His eyes met mine, green, sharp, and alive with something I didn't quite understand. He smiled, soft but direct, and pulled one earbud out. "You speak French?" he asked, with that rich Parisian accent that wrapped around every syllable like silk. "No," I said too quickly. "Not a word." He grinned. "Good. I can say whatever I want and you'll just nod." I laughed. "I wouldn't let you get away with that." We talked for 20 minutes, about nothing and everything. He told me his name, Leo, and that he had just turned 18 2 weeks ago. He was an exchange student from Montreuil, living with a host family off campus and taking American Lit to improve his English. I told him I was a film major, 22, already feeling too old for how little I had figured out. "Do you like movies?" I asked him. He smiled like I'd just given him a gift. "I love movies," he said. "Especially the sad ones." We started running into each other almost every other day after that. The library, the quad, the corner cafe near the student union where he liked to draw in a sketchbook that he claimed was terrible, though it absolutely wasn't. He'd show me rough portraits of people he'd seen, an old man feeding birds, a girl with purple hair crying behind her textbook, and say things like, "They're all feeling something I don't understand, so I try to draw it." I don't know when I started looking forward to seeing him more than anything else in my day. I told myself it was innocent, just a crush. He was beautiful in that delicate, careless way that made you think he didn't realize how magnetic he was. But he did. And I was falling, slow and stupid, like I hadn't already been warned by a dozen stories exactly like this one. The thing is, Leo never said anything that could be labeled as romantic. But he had a way of standing close when he spoke to me, close enough that I could feel the heat off his body. He'd brush his fingers against mine when he handed me something. He'd lean his head on my shoulder during movies, sighing like it was the most natural thing in the world. He once fell asleep on my couch after a long night talking about how much he missed the sound of French rain. His hand had landed on my thigh. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. He never apologized for any of it, never explained. and I never asked. Because the truth was, I didn't want to know. I was scared that the answer would shatter the spell I was under. But spells never last forever. And on the night I finally worked up the nerve to say what I felt, what I had been carrying for weeks, something in his face shifted. Something cold. And I knew, even before he spoke, that I had made a mistake. I rehearsed it so many times before I said it. In my head it sounded casual, honest, like something I could toss out into the air, let it float, and see what landed. But when the moment came, it didn't feel casual at all. It felt like standing at the edge of something high and hoping you don't break when you fall. We were sitting in my apartment, just past midnight. Leo had come over after his art class, carrying a small paper bag with pastries from that little bakery he loved. The one where he flirted with the barista and then turned around and smiled only at me. I had the lights dimmed low, and the quiet hum of an old French playlist filled the room. He sprawled out on the couch, half on me, half off, like he always did, his head resting on my shoulder. I don't know what it was that finally pushed me to speak. Maybe it was the way his breath slowed when he relaxed, or how his fingers absent-mindedly traced shapes on my forearm. Or maybe I just couldn't carry the weight of wanting anymore without knowing if he wanted back. So I said it. I think I'm falling for you. The words landed between us with a soft, awful thud. Leo didn't move at first. His fingers stopped tracing. His body didn't flinch, but I felt him go still in that way you feel someone thinking too hard. He slowly lifted his head and sat up, not looking at me right away. I waited. When he finally met my eyes, there wasn't a smile on his face. No teasing grin, no sarcastic quip. Just that unreadable expression he sometimes wore when he looked at his own drawings, the ones he hated for being too honest. I didn't know you felt that way, he said, his voice low. I blinked. Leo, come on. He stared at the floor. You're important to me. I like being around you. But I never said... You didn't have to, I interrupted, sharper than I meant to. The way you touch me, the things you say, the way you look at me, what am I supposed to think? He looked at me then, finally. I didn't mean to confuse you. That's not good enough. The silence that followed stretched so wide I could feel the space between us grow into something colder, something I didn't recognize. I've never been in love, he admitted. Not with a guy. Not really with anyone. I'm still figuring it out. I wanted to say that was okay. I wanted to say I could wait. But instead I just said, then why come so close? He didn't answer. He stood up, running a hand through his hair, agitated. Maybe I liked being close to someone who saw me. Maybe I didn't think you'd take it that way. But I did. I know, he whispered. I looked at him, standing there in my living room, this boy who had tangled himself into my routine, my thoughts, my quiet. I hated that he looked guilty. I hated that I still wanted him to come back and sit beside me, even if it meant nothing. He pulled his coat off the hook, moving slowly. I think I should go, he said. I didn't stop him. The door closed behind him with the softest click, but it rang in my chest like a slammed confession. I sat there for a long time after he left, the pastry bag still unopened on the table, the music still playing in a language I didn't understand. I didn't sleep that night, not because of heartbreak, but because deep down I wasn't sure if he'd really meant to hurt me, or if I had only seen what I wanted to see. And the worst part? I still wanted him to come back. He didn't come back the next day, or the one after that. I tried to convince myself it was better that way, That space was exactly what I needed to clear my head and remember who I was before Leo turned my days into something I couldn't stop analyzing. But space didn't feel like air. It felt like silence. And silence had a weight I wasn't ready for. On the third night, just as I was about to head to bed, I heard a knock on the door. I didn't move at first. A stupid part of me thought I'd imagined it. But then it came again. Soft, hesitant, like someone afraid of their own presence. I opened it, and there he was. His hoodie was soaked from the rain, his hair clinging to his forehead. He didn't speak right away. "I was out walking," he said finally, almost like an apology. "And I ended up here." I should have told him to go home, to dry off somewhere else, to figure things out without dragging me back in. But instead, I stepped aside, and he walked in. He peeled off the hoodie, revealing the same worn-out shirt he always wore when he was drawing for hours. He looked tired, but not in the physical sense. It was in his eyes, like something had been chasing him from the inside out. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice quieter than usual. I sat on the edge of the couch. "Yeah?" He stayed standing, pacing a little. "I didn't come to hurt you, but I think I did." "You did," I replied, "but I let you." That made him pause. He turned toward me slowly. "What does that mean?" "It means I read into things. I let myself believe your touches meant more. I filled in the blanks because I wanted them to mean something." He nodded slowly, like the truth stung a little, even if he couldn't deny it. Then he stepped closer. "But they did mean something. Just not the same thing they meant to you." His voice cracked a little when he said it, and I felt my breath catch. "I liked the way you made me feel," he said. "Like I wasn't alone. Like I could be soft. And I think I used that without realizing how deep you were already in." "And now?" I asked, barely above a whisper. He sat beside me, not touching, not crowding, just there, close enough to feel the heat of his skin again, and all the things that had been between us before. But this time, he didn't blur the lines. He looked at me straight on. "I don't know," he said. "I'm still trying to understand myself, what I want, what this is." I hated how honest that sounded, and I hated even more that a part of me still wanted to be the answer he eventually found. "Then we can't go back to the way things were," I said. "I know. I can't be your maybe anymore." That hit something in him. I could see it, the way his fingers tightened on his jeans, the way his eyes glossed over, even as he fought not to blink. "But," I added, "if you ever figure it out, if you really know what you feel, then maybe come find me." He nodded, like he understood, but he didn't move. And then, just before the silence swallowed us whole, he reached out and touched my hand. No teasing this time, no games, just warmth and quiet and something that might have been a goodbye, or a promise. We didn't say another word that night. When he left, it wasn't dramatic. Just a door closing softly, and the realization that sometimes the people who shake your world aren't ready to stay in it. But just as I was settling into that thought, I looked down at the couch pillow where he had been sitting and found a folded piece of paper from his sketchbook. It was a drawing of me. Simple, honest, unfinished. And in the corner, just 2 words written in soft pencil. "Not over." I stared at that sketch longer than I should have. His handwriting in the corner was shaky, almost hesitant, like the words didn't know if they were allowed to exist. Not over. 2 simple words, but they unraveled everything I'd worked so hard to fold back into myself. I tucked the drawing away, told myself it didn't matter, that words scribbled in pencil weren't the same as standing in front of someone and choosing them. but it lived in my chest like a flickering light that refused to go out. Days passed. He didn't message. I didn't reach out. It stayed quiet. And then, it wasn't. It was a Friday afternoon when I saw him again. Not alone this time. I was crossing the quad, headed to the library when I heard his laugh. That unmistakable French lilt that always made me turn before I even realized I was searching for it. He was sitting under the sycamore tree near the east lawn, a sketchbook in his lap, and beside him, closer than I'd ever dared sit, was a guy I didn't know. Blonde, tanned, probably a few years younger than me. He leaned in to say something, and Leo laughed again. Not forced, not uncomfortable. I stopped walking. It was stupid, really. They weren't kissing. They weren't doing anything wrong. But it hit me like a wave I hadn't seen coming. My chest tightened. My stomach flipped. And that small, cruel voice inside me whispered, "He's moved on." I turned and walked the other way. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept replaying it. Not what I saw, but what I felt. That ugly, helpless mix of jealousy and shame, like I'd been holding my breath for someone who had already exhaled. Around midnight, I finally gave up pretending I was okay and sent him a message. "Was that your boyfriend today?" I stared at the screen after hitting send, regret already crawling up my spine. The reply came minutes later. "No, just a friend." That was it. No explanation, no softness, no "how are you?" Just enough to close the door without slamming it. But I wasn't done. "You said you weren't ready for anything, but you looked pretty ready today." I didn't expect a reply, but I got one. "It's not what you think. I didn't mean to hurt you." My hands were shaking. I was angry, but worse than that, I was disappointed in myself. For still caring, for still hoping. I picked up the phone and called him, straight to voicemail. So I went to bed, or tried to. The next morning, I woke up to a message I didn't expect. "I need to talk to you. In person, please." He didn't say when or where, just that. And for some reason, I knew if I didn't go, I'd regret it. That afternoon, we met at the cafe where it all started. The same corner table, same flickering light above us. It almost felt like no time had passed, except that everything had. Leo sat down first, his hair slightly messy, his eyes darker than usual. "I didn't lie to you," he began before I could speak. "But I also didn't tell you the truth." I crossed my arms. "So, tell it now." He looked away. "I met him last week. Just someone from class. He makes me laugh. He's uncomplicated." I swallowed hard. "And I'm complicated?" "No," he said quickly. "You're real. That's the difference. With you, everything feels so loud inside, like I have to face every part of myself all at once. And I don't know if I'm brave enough for that." For a second, I didn't know whether to cry or scream. "You came into my life like a storm, Leo," I said. "You made me feel like I was finally being seen. But now you're saying it's too much?" He nodded slowly. "Maybe I'm the one who's not enough." I stood up, heart pounding. "Then figure it out. But don't leave pieces of yourself in my chest if you're not planning to stay." And with that, I walked out. Not because I stopped loving him, but because I finally started choosing me. The silence that followed should have brought peace. I'd said what I needed to say. I walked away with my head held high, heart pounding, hands shaking. But still, I walked away. I expected the clarity to follow, the closure. But closure never comes when the story still lingers under your skin. I didn't hear from Leo for days, and I didn't try to reach him either. But every night I thought about him. I thought about that sentence. With you, everything feels so loud inside. It played over and over like an echo. I wondered if he knew what it felt like to be on the other end of that, to be the one making space for someone else's confusion, while my own heart stayed wide open, unguarded. On the 6th day, he showed up at my door. No text, no warning, just him, standing there in his old denim jacket, eyes red like he hadn't slept. "I know you don't owe me anything," he said, voice steady but quiet. "But I need to say it out loud." I didn't move. I didn't open the door wider, but I didn't close it either. He took that as permission. "I kissed him," he said. "That guy you saw me with." I felt my chest cave in. I wasn't sure if it was pain or just the weight of finally knowing. "I thought it would make everything easier," he continued. "Less pressure, less vulnerability. But it didn't." I said nothing. "I didn't feel anything," he added. I raised my eyes to his. "Then why did you do it?" He looked at the floor, exhaling slowly. "Because I was scared. Scared of how much you make me feel. Scared that if I let you all the way in, I'll fall and never land." "And what if I was willing to fall with you?" I asked. "Did that matter at all?" He stepped closer. "It matters now." His words were heavy, but they didn't carry the comfort they once would have. Not anymore. "You don't get to experiment with people's hearts, Leo," I said, my voice low. "You don't get to run when it's too much and come back when it's convenient." "I know," he said. "I swear, I know." He reached into his bag and pulled out his sketchbook. "This is the last thing I drew," he said, flipping to the final page. It was me, but not like before. This version wasn't soft or dreamy. It was raw, messy hair, tired eyes, face half in shadow. But there was something unshakably strong in the expression, like I was still standing even with the weight of the world. He handed it to me. "I didn't finish it," he said, "because I don't know how it ends." I held the sketchbook without speaking. "I want to try," he said. "With you, for real. Not halfway. Not with one foot out the door. And if you get scared again, I'll tell you," he said. "But I won't run." The silence between us felt different now. Not tense, just fragile. Like glass waiting to be touched gently. "I don't know if I can trust you," I admitted. "Not yet." "I'll wait," he said. "However long it takes." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But trust doesn't rebuild itself overnight, and love, real love, needs more than promises whispered at doorways. I stepped back, holding the sketchbook to my chest. "Then start here," I said. "Prove it." Leo nodded. He didn't ask to come in. He didn't push. He just looked at me like he finally saw the damage he'd done and how much it mattered. Then he left. And this time, it didn't feel like an ending. It felt like the beginning of something honest, something uncertain, something real. Weeks passed. He didn't disappear this time. Leo didn't flood my phone with messages or show up unannounced. Instead, he stayed present, quietly, gently. He sent photos of his sketches, sometimes of buildings, sometimes of nothing at all, and once, of me. It was the same unfinished drawing he had left with me, now complete. My eyes still carried the weight, but my mouth had the smallest smile. "I finally knew how to finish it," he wrote. We met again in the park one afternoon. No agenda, no pressure. He brought coffee. I brought caution. But something had changed. Not just in him. In me, too. He didn't try to hold my hand. He just sat beside me, close, but not too close. And for once, the silence wasn't filled with tension or questions. It was just peace. He looked at me and asked, "Are we okay?" I took a moment before answering. Not perfect, but maybe getting there. And then, without meaning to, I leaned into him. Not out of habit, not out of longing, but because maybe this slow, scarred, patient rebuilding is what love actually looks like. If this story made you feel something, think about the people you've pushed away, or the ones you're afraid to let in. Sometimes the messiest love is the kind that teaches us who we really are. Subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications for more stories that stay with you long after they end.